I came to America for a holiday. I've been working so hard for 2 years continuously with no holiday. So this year I thought, well, I deserve a holiday. So I plan to travel, and I left Burma on the 30th of April. Spent 1 week in Singapore and 5 or 6 weeks in England and 3-4 weeks I think in East Coast, and 1 week in Canada, Toronto, and 10 or 11 days in Los Angeles, and then now 2 weeks in the Bay Area. Quite a good holiday. I don't come just to talk with you. I also come to listen to you. I'm a learner all my life. Still want to learn more. Life is a school. We are always learning and changing, and also changing and improving. No change, no improvement. So we're always learning and changing and improving. Wow, this is a very good question here. Billy, age 6 years. Where's Billy? Some of the questions are very serious questions. Well, let's begin our Dharma discussion by reciting the Namo Tassa, which is the shortest way to open a Dharma discussion, and I think it's the best way to do that. So,
Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa.
I hope you understand what it means, because it is very important to understand whatever we say, whatever we recite. The meaning in brief is, I pay homage to the Buddha who is fully enlightened. So before answering the questions, I thought of expressing a few of my difficulties in my beginning stage of development, when I was growing up and trying to find a meaningful way to live my life, trying to find something to live for. So I think some of you have the same difficulty, because whoever wants to find the best way to live or a meaningful way to live has a lot of difficulty. So where to begin? When I was young and when I was going to school, learning to read, I was encouraged by a few teachers to read books. And I'm very grateful to those teachers. One of them is Mr. Francis, and he's still living. I've heard that he's still living. Quite old, more than 80 years old. And another teacher, I don't know whether he's living or not. His name was Brother Thomas, a Roman Catholic Irish brother, very kind, very cheerful, very friendly. So most of the boys really loved Brother Thomas, and he was a good football player too. So he encouraged us to study, to read books, and we had a special study group to study English literature and philosophy also. And we didn't have to sit for exams for those classes, because those were exceptions. I was chosen to be one of the students there. So because I love reading, I attended those classes regularly. Didn't want to miss any of those classes because those classes were more enjoyable and meaningful than the regular classes. So in those classes, for example, he would play a record of a poem recited by the author, recited by the poet. So we got to hear the voice of the poet reading his own poem. Very interesting. And we have movies, slides. So, and these teachers encourage us to read books on many different subjects. And one advice they give us is, if you read one book, try to get another book with opposite opinion. Don't just read one book, because if you just read one opinion or one side of view, you will get stuck with that point of view. So it will narrow your mind. You become, how do you say that? Rigid in your thinking. So whenever you read a book, find another book which has different opinion. So I love that sort of ideas. So whenever I read one book, I'll try to find another book from the library, different author, different opinion. And as I read more and more books, naturally, I also read books on history. And whenever you read history, you read about a country and about the religion also. So I read history of Buddhism and history of India, history of Ceylon, history of Buddhism in Ceylon, Sri Lanka, now they have a different name, Sri Lanka, and history of Europe, history of Christianity. And very recently I read another book on Judaism, very interesting, about what is that? Moses. Very interesting book. How he became a leader and the difficulties of being a leader. So I read many books on different religions and many books on different philosophies, different psychology, and Eastern ideas also. Many books on Chinese religion. Read books about Confucius, Lao Tzu, Zen Buddhism. So I was exposed to many different ideas, and all ideas are very interesting to me. And as I was reading books on the teaching of the Buddha, because it's difficult for me to say that it is Buddhism, because Buddha and ism, I think, doesn't go together very well. But anyway, as I read books on the teaching of the Buddha, I got very interested, especially when I read about the story of the life of the Buddha. I got very inspired and felt very attracted to his life, his personality. And one verse which I want to talk about or discuss about today, which I came across and which have caused me a lot of sleepless nights, so to speak, is that Buddha said, Attahi atano nato, kohi nato paratiya. This is the Burmese way of pronouncing. Attahi atano nato, kohi nato parosiya. You yourself is your own reliance. How can anybody be your reliance? So when I came across that verse, I liked that very much. But as a young boy, with not enough knowledge to decide what is right and what is wrong, it was a very difficult situation. How can I rely on myself? I don't know enough. How can I decide whether something is right or wrong? And Buddha went on. The second part of the verse is Attanahi tu dantena nathan labati tolaban. By taming yourself well. This is the literal translation. Tu dantena means taming well. By taming yourself well, one can achieve that reliance which is difficult to achieve, which is difficult to get. So I like the idea that one should be one's own reliance, because since I was a young boy, I like freedom, I like independence. And that is the strongest motivation in my life, to be free, to be independent. And I think most Americans like that idea. Free and independent. And even in reading books, I want to keep my own freedom. I don't want to get deceived by the author's point of view. So that's why whenever I read one idea, I'll try to find another book which expresses different idea or opposing ideas. So in my mind, there's a debate going on. Always a debate in my mind going on. Always questioning, always doubting. So I was a skeptic and I'm still a skeptic. And using the word skeptic reminded me of one book that I read by the philosopher Bertrand Russell. And that book is called Skeptical Essays. I've read many books by Bertrand Russell because I like reading philosophy books, and his books I found readable, easier to read, and interesting too. His style of writing is very good. So when I read these books and read these skeptical essays also, I like the word skeptical and try to be a skeptic, not ready to believe in any idea, always thinking for myself and challenging any ideas. So because I challenged all ideas and questioned, I got into trouble many times with my parents, with my teachers, and I was accused, called many bad names. And one of them is that they call me a communist because I did not believe in anything. How can I believe in something? I was not sure. I don't know whether it's true or not. And if I believe in something, I have to take it wholeheartedly and really practice it. So just to say that I believe something and not to practice is, how do you say that? A person's believing something, not practicing?
Hypocrisy.
Hypocrisy, yes, right, hypocrisy. So to be a hypocrite is really painful, and even now sometimes I feel like I'm a hypocrite. Many times I ask myself, well, do you really practice what you teach? Do you really practice what you teach? If I teach something and don't practice, what would I be?
Hypocrite.
Hypocrite. And to see yourself as a hypocrite doesn't make you feel happy about it. So I question many things, and I refuse to do anything that I don't believe in, whether it's anything religious or not. So when my parents told me to do something, I refused to do that. I said, no, I don't think this is a proper thing to do. And when they argue with me, I argue with them. I gave them many reasons. And because I read so many books and learned many different ways to express ideas and question, and my parents, they were not literate, simple-minded persons, couldn't argue with me, so they always lose in argument with me. And they did not like that. So they were very unhappy that I won't listen to them. And I was very unhappy that we cannot talk with each other. And my sister, the elder sister, is a very nice, kind, old sister. She's still living. She said one day, well, you do whatever you like, but when you are with mother, try to please her. Do what she told you to do. And I said, no, I cannot do that. I cannot do what I don't believe in doing. I don't want to be a person, one person in front of her and another person in the back. I don't want to be two persons. I want to be me, whoever I'm with. So I don't want to deceive my mother and making her believe that I accept her views and in the back of her not really doing what she wanted me to do. So I said, I won't do that. So it was very difficult for me to relate to my parents. And my father died when I was 15, and it was good for him and good for me too. I don't mean to say that I was happy that he died, but it would be very difficult for him as I grew up and became more and more independent in my thinking and not agree with their point of views and not to get along with them well. So it was a difficult time for me when I was growing up. And when I read this verse, Attahi Atano Nato, one is one's own reliance. One should be one's own reliance. I like that very much, because if you rely on yourself, if you are your own reliance, then you are independent. Then you are free. If you rely on another person, even though that person is a wise, kind person, you won't really develop your own deeper understanding. I don't mean that you should not listen to anybody, but you listen to people, think for yourself, practice and find out for yourself. So it takes a long time for a young person to really find out something. It takes a long, long time. So I decided that I will not be a member of any religious group before I find out what that religion means, whether that religion is true or not. In fact, once I decided that I will never be a member of any religious group, because to become a member, you lose freedom when you become a member. You have to agree with the group. You have to agree with the leader. You have to do what the leader tells you to do. And naturally, sometimes you can't agree with your leader. You can't agree with the group. Naturally. This is natural for anybody. So therefore, whenever they have a group, religious organization, recruiting members, I never apply for a membership. But I always try to help as much as I can when they need my help, when they need my contribution. I always help any group. I was friendly with all the groups, but I was never a member of any group. So in universities also, we have many religious groups, and everybody belongs to one or another religious group. But I was the only one who did not belong to any religious group. Because I was a skeptic, I was still trying to find out for myself. So as I have told the same story again and again, when I had to fill up the form to apply for a new year as a student, I always fill, when they ask your religion, I always fill the blank. No religion yet. Fill the blank. No religion yet. Still trying to find out, because I believe that you cannot inherit a religion. You have to learn, find out for yourself, and practice it. You cannot inherit a religion. You can inherit money, possessions, house, but you cannot inherit a religion. So it took me many years to find out for myself something that I want to live for, or even to die for, if I have to. So I started practicing the teaching of the Buddha not because I believed, but I want to find out. And that's what the Buddha encouraged. Find out for yourself. And that's one thing that I like very much about the Buddha. He did not demand blind faith. He always encouraged a person to practice and find out, not to believe. So that's what encouraged me to study more about the teaching of the Buddha and practice his teaching. So after practicing Dharma for 8 or 9 years, I found out that it really helps to improve my mind, my heart. It makes me more peaceful, more calm. It makes me see more clearly. And therefore I decided that I will go on practicing the teaching of the Buddha, although I do not understand everything he taught. And even now I do not understand everything he taught. There are many things that I could not understand. But there are a few things that I've practiced and found out that these are really true, and these are really worth practicing and worth living for. And one of the practices that I practice is mindfulness, which I found very simple and natural and practical. Very simple and natural. There's nothing natural about mindfulness practice. So as you may have heard or read in many books about mindfulness, mindfulness means to be aware of whatever is happening or whatever you are doing. Whatever is happening in your body, whatever is happening in your mind, or whatever you are doing, to be aware, to be conscious, to pay attention to whatever you are doing. So I think this is the simplest and most natural practice that I've ever found, because you don't have to do anything. So mindfulness practice is not doing something. In Burmese I say, that means you are not trying to do something, or you are not trying to resist something. You are just paying attention to whatever is happening. So I found this very simple and natural and easy to practice too, because you can do that anywhere, no matter what you are doing. So as I practice mindfulness more and more, I found that it affects my mental states. I became more aware of my mental states. I became more aware of my thoughts and feelings and emotions. And especially in the beginning, what do you think you'll find more about yourself in the beginning? All the negative thoughts, defilements, yes, naturally, defilements. So when I pay attention to what's happening in my mind, naturally I find that I want this, I want that, or I'm angry or upset about this or that. So mostly we go through the day wanting this, wanting that, not liking this, not liking that, upset, angry. Sometimes we are happy, not always angry, not always upset, but sometimes we are happy too. But even when we are happy, when I pay close attention to that mental state, I found that sometimes we are just deceiving ourselves to make ourselves happy. When you become really serious about this happy state of mind, you'll find that it's quite childish. Sometimes we make jokes and laugh, and when you seriously think about the jokes, it doesn't make sense. It's nonsense. So many times I thought that what makes us laugh is something really nonsense. So nonsense makes us laugh, makes us happy. When I become serious about that, sometimes when my friends make jokes, I won't laugh. And they were very unhappy about that. Why we are laughing and why don't you laugh? And I said, there's nothing to laugh about this joke. This doesn't make sense. So when you become really serious about what makes sense and what doesn't make sense, it's very difficult for you to laugh. So after practicing this for many years, I came to the conclusion that I will go on practicing this for the rest of my life. Because I found out that practicing meditation makes the mind more clear, more aware, more conscious. You can see things more clearly. You can see your mind more clearly. And that helps improve my mental state and my understanding. So as I practice and read Dhamma books, it helps me in both ways. So I believe that if you really want to understand the teaching of the Buddha, you have to do both. You have to study, which means you read books. You have to discuss with what you read with other people also, so that you have different opinions. But sometimes you misinterpret what you have read, or sometimes there may be many different interpretations of the same idea. So it is important to study, to read, to discuss, and also to practice. And practice for a long time, for many years. It may take many years for you to really come to the conclusion that this is practical, this is useful, this works, and this is the right way or the right path. So many people, I found that they don't want to find out for themselves, especially for example my friends whom I studied with in the same school, whom I love so much. They don't want to think for themselves. They are not really serious about their religion. And although I was a skeptic for many years, for 8 or 9 or 10 years in my teenagers, during my teenage years, until I was 27 or 26, I mean. Although I was a skeptic, I was serious about religion. So I found out that those who believe easily are not really serious. Those who believe without really trying to find out for themselves are not really serious. But those who are skeptics are really serious. And I have a few other friends too who are very skeptic about any religion, and I found out that they are more religious than believers. Although they say they don't believe in anything, they are more religious. They are more restrained, they behave well, they don't hurt people, they keep, how do you say that? They keep the precepts. Is there another way to say that? They are self-respecting and they respect others. They are kind, compassionate. But when I ask them, what do you believe? Do you believe in any religion? They say, well, no, I don't believe in any religion. But I found that these people are really kind and nice people. And later, some of them became good meditators, and now they are practicing Buddhists. Not just Buddhists by birth, but real practicing Buddhists. And some of them are still skeptics and they don't practice any religion. And I have one friend like that who is still trying to find out, not decided yet. So when I talk with this friend, it reminds me of one young Brahmin ascetic at the time of the Buddha. When the Buddha became enlightened and he was going to this Varanasi to give his first Dhamma talk, first sermon to the group of 5 ascetics, on the way he met one young Brahmin ascetic and asked him, who are you? And Buddha said, I'm the Buddha, I'm enlightened, I'm the awakened one. And the Brahmin said, oh, really? And then he went his own way. And many, many times he met the Buddha, or he tried to find where the Buddha was living, and he went to see the Buddha and asked Buddha questions. And Buddha gave him explanations, good explanations, and he listened and said, oh, really? Mm-hmm. And then he left. And many, many times, for more than 40 years, he followed Buddha and asked Buddha questions and questions and questions, still very doubtful. So can't decide, can't make up his mind. And just before Buddha passed away, he felt that he understood the Buddha's teaching and decided to become a bhikkhu. After following Buddha for 45 years, at last he decided to become a bhikkhu. And I love that story very much. So I think there are people in America also, anywhere in the world, there are people who are not decided, who are still looking for something, who are really serious about it. Not just casual, they are really serious about something worth living, something that will give meaning to their life, something that will give them deeper understanding of what life is about. They are still looking for, and I respect them very much. Take your time. So, many people, because they don't want to take the trouble to study, to practice, to find out for themselves, just surrender themselves to somebody and ask, just tell me what to believe or just tell me what to do. If that teacher is a good teacher, well, he or she will tell you the right thing to do, and if you do that, it will benefit you. But even though you do the right thing, you need to understand why you are doing that and how what you are doing affects your mind and body, how it affects your life. You hear these days about many cults where the leaders tell the followers to do something terrible, and the followers did exactly that. Can you tell me one story like that? Where the leader told the followers to do something really terrible, and the followers did that? One story?
Jonestown.
Right.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Horrible stories, yes. So whenever I read stories like that, I thought, how can these people take these instructions so seriously? They kill themselves. So I think it is very important for people to find out for themselves, to take time, not to believe. And it's hard work. To find out for yourself, it's real hard work. It may take many, many years, but it's worth the trouble. And when you really work hard to find out for yourself, you develop inner strength, confidence to it, self-respect, and you become more and more independent and free. So I studied with many teachers even before I became a monk, and I studied with many teachers after I became a monk. I listened to what they told me, and I tried, well, as best as I could, to practice what they told me to do, and found out for myself whether it works for me or not. Different things works for different people. For example, there are many different meditation, let's say, techniques or methods. Not every meditation instruction works for everybody. People have different personality, they have different inclinations, different interests. So what works for one person may not work for another person. Even the Buddha taught different people in different ways. So I feel that Dharma is very flexible and adaptable too. But it is very important to understand that flexible and adaptable doesn't mean that we can interpret it in any way we like. Because Dharma is law of nature. And law of nature cannot be changed. For example, when you have desire or greed, and Buddha said that leads to unhappiness or suffering. Is that true? Have you found out for yourself that this is true? Yes, it cannot be changed. But now some people are saying something quite different. So it's very important to find out for yourself. Natural laws cannot be changed. So when I practiced the teaching of the Buddha and found out these natural laws in me, it's not out there. These natural laws are in our mind. in me. So whenever I find that I want something or I'm attached to somebody, I feel very unhappy. I feel very stressful. So whenever I lose something that I love so much, anything or anybody, I feel very unhappy. And when I look deep into my mind, I found out that this is true. This is true. I've been watching this phenomenon hundreds of times, and every time I watch this, I find the same thing. Whenever I get attached to something, whenever I want something too badly, my mind is not at peace. Sometimes I couldn't even sleep. So whether I can overcome attachment or greed is another matter. But to see that this is true is very important. Without deceiving ourselves that, oh, it's okay, never mind, I'm not so unhappy about it. But most people deceive themselves. So to find out for oneself and not to be a blind follower is very important. For example, to give you one story about Upali. I like this story very much too. I respect the Buddha because of this story too. One rich man named Upali went to the Buddha and asked him many questions. His intention was to trap the Buddha in the corner so that he will not be able to answer the question. Whichever way he answers, he will be in the trap. He will be in the corner. So with that intention, he went to the Buddha and asked the Buddha many questions. But the Buddha, very wise and skillfully, because he was so wise and skillful, answered all the questions to the satisfaction of Upali. And Upali became very satisfied with the teaching of the Buddha and said, Buddha, accept me as a disciple of the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. Accept me as the follower and supporter of Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. And Buddha said, Upali, you are very famous and you are wise. Don't be in a hurry. Take your time. Think it over. I was very surprised when I read that story. And Upali was very surprised too. He said, Buddha, if I were to convert to another sect, they will go around the city and proclaim, is that the right word? Proclaim that Upali has now converted to our sect, to our religion. They will be so proud of it. But now, when I said, Buddha, please accept me as the disciple of the Buddha, and the supporter of Buddha's Dharma and Sangha, you said, Buddha, Upali, take your time, think it over. You are wise, you are very famous. Don't be in a hurry. Don't jump to a conclusion. Don't decide so easily. So for that reason, I respect you, and I ask you for the second time, please accept me as a disciple of the Buddha and a supporter of Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. And Buddha said, all right, but you were a disciple of Nigandar, and your home, your house, was like a well on the corner of the road, on the crossroad, where all the Nigandars can come to get whatever they need. So I think you should still support those Nigandars, although you become a disciple of the Buddha. And Upali said, I'm surprised. People told me that Buddha said only supporting or offering to the Buddha and his disciples, the Sangha, is beneficial. And offering or supporting other people is not beneficial. But what I hear from you is so different from what I heard from other people. So I ask you again to accept me as a disciple of the Buddha and a supporter of Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. But to support the Nigandars, I know about that. So he still supported those other ascetics as he used to. So you see how magnanimous Buddha was. He did not want other sects to be deprived of their support. He was very compassionate. So I think a true Buddhist should learn something from this story. to be magnanimous. And so Upali said, please accept my invitation for a meal, Buddha and all the disciples. I invite Buddha and all the disciples to come to my home for a meal tomorrow. So Buddha accepted that. So from that story too, I found out that Buddha did not want people to easily accept his teaching, but to really find out, to be more serious about it. So I thought Buddha did not want big number of disciples. The Buddha's intention was for a person to find out for himself or for herself and become liberated, free. He did not want disciples actually. He wanted people to understand the truth and overcome defilements and become free. And another story, just before the Buddha passed away into Nibbana, Venerable Ananda asked, when you pass away, who shall be our teacher? Buddha said, the Dharma and Vinaya that I taught you will be your teacher. He did not designate anybody to take his position. And this is really surprising. I have never found in any other religion such a, how do I say that, instruction. So the Dharma and Vinaya is our teacher, not a person. He did not designate any great disciple to take his position, to be the leader of the Sangha. This is very unique, this is very important. Think about it. You'll find out the Buddha's intention. So, and Buddha also said that, I don't want to be the leader of a group. He did not want to be a leader. He just wanted to make people free. I have no intention to be the leader, the big leader. I did not think that I will lead the Sangha. Although he created the Sangha, he made rules for the Sangha, and it's for the Sangha to decide. Whenever there's anything to decide, the Sangha has to come together and declare what they are going to do and ask for the vote. And only 100% vote can validate the decision. 100%, not 99%. So it must be very difficult to do that. So reading about these stories and thinking about it made me respect Buddha very deeply. This is the teacher that I can trust and respect, because he did not want to be the leader. He did not ask for blind faith. He did not want big number of followers. His intention was not to have big number of followers. His intention was to point out the truth, to point out the path that will lead to the liberation, freedom, and be free. So when I was younger, I thought, well, it's better not to belong to any religion, because if you belong to any religion, you have to believe in things that you don't believe in. You will be asked or forced to believe in things that you don't want to believe, or you'll be asked or forced to do something you don't want to do. You will lose your freedom, and your behavior will be controlled. Not only your behavior, even your thinking will be controlled. Because sometimes I read in books that if you have any doubts, you have already committed a big crime. You are not allowed to have a doubtful thought. You are not allowed to have any doubts. But Buddha encouraged doubt. But to encourage doubt doesn't mean that you stop there. Because if you have any doubts, then you have to work hard to find out. So for people who say, well, I believe everything, it's very easy and cheap. But for some people who say, well, I don't know, I'll find out, then that person has taken a big responsibility. So, to find out for yourself is a big responsibility which most people do not want to take. Tell me what to do, tell me what to believe. Don't make me think. People are afraid of thinking. So, one person said, if you really make people think, they will hate you. But if you make people believe that they are thinking, seriously, they will love you. What do you say about that? So thinking or finding out for yourself, practicing and finding out for yourself is a big responsibility. So you must find out for yourself. It's a big responsibility. It's very challenging, and although sometimes it may make you feel tired, or it will make you it will give you sleepless nights, if you persist, you'll find out. Persistent is really important, because what the Buddha taught is law of nature, and nature, although sometimes it seems like nature is hiding its own truth, if you're persistent, you'll surely find out. In many other fields too, for example in physics, scientists work hard, hundreds or thousands of scientists work hard for years and years, and they find out one truth after another about physical universe. So in the same way, when we practice meditation, we are finding out about the nature of this mind and body. What makes us happy, what makes us unhappy, what makes us free, and what makes us, what's the opposite of free? Confined. Yes. So if we really are persistent, and if we really practice satipatthana, mindfulness, we will find out for ourselves. It's a great responsibility, but if we avoid this responsibility, we will never find out for ourselves, and we will never be free, we will never feel confident, we will always be dependent, and we will always be a child, we will never grow up. Well, where is that little boy? I want to answer his question.
Billy.
Billy? He's asleep?
Younger brother was tired.
Okay, alright. But his question is, what is it like being a monk?
Ask that to every monk.
But for me, I think it's so natural for me to be a monk that it's like fish in the water.
I tell him that.
It's not really hard for me to be a monk. I become a monk by my own choice, and I enjoyed that since I became a monk. Since the first day I became a monk, I really loved it, enjoyed it. Although it's a hard life. It's not easy to be a monk, but not easy doesn't mean that I don't like it. I don't want easygoing life. I like to work hard. So after I became a monk, I went into a forest monastery, and became a monk and lived a very simple life. Simple means really simple. I had all the clothes that I'm wearing on, that's all I had. And I had a bowl, and I had a small place to live in, but in the beginning not even a place. I spent many months under a tree, in a chair, sitting in the chair and sleeping in the chair, going for alms to small villages, to poor villages, and receiving food from the villagers, come back and ate one meal a day. one and only meal a day, and practice meditation most of the time, sometimes going to listen to Dharma talks by my teacher, and sometimes asking questions, and sometimes helping other younger monks too. And after living with my teacher for 3-4 years, I moved away to a different place because my teacher was very famous. So naturally, when you live with a person who is so famous, you meet too many people. And there are so many things distracting that sometimes you don't have enough time to meditate. And when you know a lot of things and when you are very helpful, naturally, more and more people will come to ask for help. And you are willing to help, but you need time for yourself too. So when I was living with my teacher, sometimes I was so busy that I did not have enough time to practice for my own. So I asked for permission from my teacher to move to another forest monastery where there was only one old monk who was almost blind and some nuns there looking after him. So I went to that place and found a cave, a deserted cave. Nobody lived in that cave, and the cave was in a gully. There were no steps even to go down. So I have to hold on to trees to go down and spend most of my days in that little cave. And that's where I got very deep into meditation practice, developed real strong awareness and concentration, and started seeing what's going on in my mind very clearly. So at first what I see is thoughts, random thoughts, one thing after another arising in my mind. Very funny, some of my thoughts were. I think it's natural for anybody. If somebody can make recordings of your thoughts and play back to you, you will laugh. So when I watch my thoughts, many times I just laugh at myself. Oh, how foolish, how silly, how funny. I was not upset because I was not trying to control myself. I was just trying to observe, and I enjoy observing, watching very much. So no matter what thought comes into my mind, I get very interested in that thought and watch it very closely. Thoughts and emotion, they come together. Every thought is accompanied by a kind of emotion, whether in Pali, somanassa, which means happy about it, or domanassa, unhappy, or upekha, which means neutral, neither happy nor unhappy. So watching my thoughts, I also feel the emotion that accompanies with the thought. And as I watched my thoughts more and more closely, like looking at my thoughts through a macroscope and magnifying it more and more, getting closer and closer to the details of my thoughts, I noticed that when you think in words, and there are also images arising. Naturally, everybody knows that, but have you ever really get close and see it really clearly? Images flash in your mind, and words appear in your mind, emotions arises in your mind. So it's very interesting. So this is the first time that I really enjoyed meditation practice without trying to control my thoughts, without trying to get concentrated even. I just got interested in watching my thoughts. So this is not the only thing that I do. Whenever I do whatever I do, I pay close attention to. For example, when I get thirsty, I feel the thirst and I feel the desire to drink water, and I see the decision to get up and go and get a drink. So I can see all these very clearly. Thirst, the feeling, the desire to drink, the decision to drink, and the decision makes my body get up. I can see that and feel it. And walking to the water pot, taking the cup, opening the lid from the water pot, because in Burma we keep water in an earthen pot, not here like in a plastic bottle. So dipping the cup, taking the water and taking the drink and feeling the coolness and feeling better after taking the drink and putting the cup back and coming back to my seat, sit down, relax, pay attention to breathing, and gradually, naturally my mind goes toward watching the mind. Because I think this is my inclination. Although I started practicing meditation by paying attention to breathing, after I developed some concentration, naturally my mind watch what's going on in my mind. Naturally, my attention inclines toward paying attention to what's happening in my mind, what I'm thinking about. So get interested. This is very important, because if you are not interested in something, it becomes very hard work. But if you are interested in doing something, no matter how long it takes, you don't get tired. So I got very interested in my thoughts, and when I get real, direct, pinpoint observation, real, in Burmese we call pisopantede, right in the present. When I can watch my thought and really hit it, it stops. And I found this very surprising. Nobody told me about that. My teacher didn't tell me what will happen if I watch my thoughts. But as I was watching and watching and watching, when I really hit the mark, naturally thinking stops. And it was cut in the middle of a sentence. And I was surprised. But later, it continues again. So repeatedly I did that again and again for many, many days, even for months. And what happens is, the more I can pay attention to the thought, the easier it becomes for me to see it very clearly, and it stops. So any kind of desire, when it appears, I did not try to overcome the desire. I did not try to suppress the desire. I did not try to turn my mind away from the desire and to get distracted or to pay attention to anything else. Whenever any desire appears, I pay close attention to that desire. So mindfulness practice is not turning away. It is looking straight. So when I look very closely at the desire, I can feel what that desire wants, what it is trying to achieve, what it's trying to do, what it is reaching toward, and how I feel when there's a desire. For example, naturally, when we go for alms to the poor villages, we don't get really nice food, although the food is good enough to keep us alive. It's not like what my mother cooked for me. It's poor village. So naturally, sometimes I like to eat a good meal. And sometimes in my mind I'll be thinking of dreaming of eating a nice meal. And I catch myself, thinking of a good meal, a nice meal. And watch that desire very closely. And got very interested. And learn a lot about desire. So whenever I get frustrated or upset or angry, I watch that mental state and get very, very interested in frustration. What makes me frustrated? How do you feel when you're frustrated? What does frustration is trying to do? What is its function? So learn a lot about the nature of desire, the nature of frustration, because that's the two emotions that most motivates us. There are many other motivations, but these two are the most that motivates us in our daily life. So instead of overcoming or getting rid of the desire, I get interested in desire or frustration or anger and watch that very closely. And one thing that made me very upset when I was living in a forest monastery is when people come and cut down trees. I can't stand that. Whenever I hear somebody cutting down trees, I have to stop meditating and go and tell that mind to stop that. Don't cut down trees. That is something I can't tolerate. So many times, whenever I hear somebody cutting down a tree, I feel so upset, so angry, that I can't meditate anymore. Well, That way, I learn a lot about what desire is, what anger is, what frustration is, or even what pride is. And gradually, whenever I watch my mind, all thinking stops. And the mind became very clear. No thought anymore, a very clear, quiet, peaceful mind. And this is very important. So I try to explain about this again and again, because from my understanding, meditation is not creating a certain mental state. Mindfulness practice is not creating a certain mental state. Mindfulness practice is paying attention to whatever is happening now, in your body or in your mind. And if you can pay complete attention, you will see it very clearly, you will learn the nature of it, and you will see that this is a natural phenomenon. Natural phenomenon means it is naturally according to its own cause and effect laws. They are causes that creates this situation. And you can see that both cause and effect are natural, and there's nobody behind. There's nobody making it happen. And this is the first thing I've experienced. When I watch any physical phenomenon or any mental phenomenon, the first thing I learn from that is that this is a natural phenomenon. And nobody is making it happen. It is happening because it has natural causes to happen. Which means this is anatta, not atta. So that is the first thing I learned from my meditation practice. So when I've learned this very clearly, my meditation practice became very easy. Because before that, I was meditating with a big ego. I am meditating. I'm doing something. I'm making something happen. I'm trying to achieve something. Naturally, in our daily life, that's how we try to get things done. But when it comes to meditation practice, we cannot really see things clearly with an egoistic mind, with a big ego. So when I can see that everything that happens according to its natural law, I became a disinvolved observer, completely uninvolved observer, not trying to control anything anymore, not trying to resist anything anymore, not trying to change anything anymore. Because before that, when my mind gets agitated or when I'm unhappy, I try to change my mind, try to think of something that will make me happy. But after that, I just watch whatever mental state arises. So this watching mind also is anatta. It's not I meditating anymore. It's the watching mind, watching another mental state, watching whatever is happening in the body and mind. So even the meditating mental state is just a mental state. It's not I meditating anymore. And that makes me very liberated in a way, free. So I pay attention to this watching mind, I pay attention to the objects arising, I pay attention to the attention arising, and see that both of them passes away. Both of them passes away. And there's no I meditating anymore. That's the first liberation. So when the mind becomes very clear and alert and quiet and peaceful, the mind feels very light and bright. And I like that mental state very much. And from that mental state, I can see everything very clearly. Whatever thought appears, I can see the nature of it accurately, clearly. Whether it's negative or positive, whether it's wholesome or unwholesome, I can watch it without getting involved, without getting upset about it. Even when sometimes an unwholesome thought appears, I can watch that unwholesome thought without getting upset about that unwholesome thought. Nothing to get upset about. So with a detached mind, with a detachment, I can stay calm and watch it. And it disappears. So when I get to that mental state, then I found out that attahi atanonato, to really get to that state, to be your own reliance, you have to be mindful, very mindful. And when you develop clear awareness, clear observation, when you are able to observe things very clearly, then you can depend on yourself. You become your own reliance. This is the first stage of reliance, not the final stage of reliance. This is the first step. Unless we can do that, we cannot reach to higher stages of reliance or refuge. So when I get to that state, I felt very confident that now no mental state can really possess my mind. People are possessed by desires. People are possessed by anger. Really, they are possessed. But if you can watch any mental state without getting involved, then you can never be possessed by any desire or any anger. Even though sometimes you have desire for this or that, you can wash it and it will go away. No big problem. If you cannot wash it, then you feel that I want this. Then when this I and want get together, they become very strong. But when there's no I in wanting, then it's not a big problem anymore. So things become a problem whenever we make the two together. I want, I hate. So when hatred arises, you can see that this is just a mental state. And without getting involved, you can just wash it. It will go away very easily. So any kind of defilements or any kind of anger or desire gets stronger if it gets the support of the wrong view or the wrong idea of I. I and desire together, very strong. Without an I, the desire itself is not strong. I and anger, when they get together, become very strong. When there's anger without an I, then it has no power. So if you can wash it, it will dissolve. So when I was able to do that, I feel very happy about that, and I feel that now I'm confident that no desire will possess me. No desire will take me over. And this is the first step in my freedom. And as you practice more and more, you will learn more and more. You will see through and through. And this seeing and learning, which means wisdom, will do its own work. It's not me trying to overcome any desire. It's the wisdom that sees through and through, that sees every mental state that overcomes. So it's the function of wisdom to overcome any desire or any anger. We cannot do that just by our will to do that. It's the wisdom that we develop by paying attention, by being mindful, by learning about the nature of mind and body, that becomes free. So only wisdom can make us free. So when you have developed this wisdom, then you find that this is my reliance. So attahi atanonato, you are your own refuge, you are your own shelter, you are your own reliance. Who can be your reliance? Nobody else can be your reliance. So teachers can teach you, instruct you, guide you, help you, but you have to do your own work. And it's very simple. This Nirvana, the end of suffering, the cessation of suffering. And this question is very difficult to answer. Please explain the difference between true Nibbana and pseudo Nibbana, or cessation, or arupa jhanas. So many points. Nibbana is the end of phenomenon. One definition is. So when a person experiences Nibbana, that person is not experiencing any phenomenon anymore. Anything that arises and passes away is the worldly phenomenon. But Nibbana is not a phenomenon. It's nature. It's paramatta, which means it does exist. But the existence of Nirvana is very difficult to explain. We can talk about Nibbana in a negative way, what it is not. But it is very difficult to say what it is. But we can say that Nibbana is the cessation of physical and mental process. So when in our meditation practice, at first we observe physical processes, whatever happening in our body, vibrations, movements, heat or cold, or hardness or softness, or in our mind also we observe many things, many emotions, many thoughts, greed, anger, or even positive mental states like loving kindness, compassion, mindfulness, concentration, samadhi, upekkha, balance of mind, many different mental states we can observe. But we are still observing natural phenomena. And when we have complete understanding of these physical and mental phenomena, when the wisdom that we develop from observing these becomes really mature, naturally it goes beyond. So this is another point that we must remember. When we understand something completely, fully, the nature of wisdom is that it goes beyond. Naturally it goes beyond. Whenever we understand something completely, the wisdom will go beyond that. So when we understand physical and mental phenomenon completely, this understanding goes beyond physical and mental phenomenon and experience a reality which is something that does not arise or passes away. Just complete peace, complete freedom. Very difficult to talk about these matters. And when a person experiences this mental state or this Nibbana, it is accompanied with deep wisdom too. And jhanas are just concentration of mind where no desire, no negative mental state appears. It is just concentrated mind, concentrated on some object. It still has an object, a worldly object. It may be like you can get jhana by practicing metta, you can get jhana by contemplating on Patui Kasina, or any other object. You can develop jhana. And even arupa jhana, you can even contemplate on nothingness and get really concentrated on that and become very quiet and peaceful. Nothingness also becomes an object of your meditation practice. And because we spend so much time in the forest, years and years, and nothing else to do except go for alms and eat and meditate the whole day, we played with a lot of many different kinds of meditation practice. Just enjoyed playing around with different kinds of meditation practice. So we tried that too and found that this is very peaceful, and it is very similar to Nibbana, because when your mind is just absorbed in nothingness, it's very quiet and peaceful. But the difference is that you can turn around and see that you are contemplating on nothingness. But when a person is really experiencing Nibbana, you cannot do that. Because the moment you turn around and see what you are aware of, you are already observing a phenomenon, natural phenomenon, a mental state. So when a person is experiencing Nibbana, that person cannot experience that mental state which is experiencing Nibbana. That's the difference. Difficult to talk about. I don't know whether you understand it or not. And after a person experiences Nibbana, his I don't know how to say that, his personality changes to a certain extent. He will not be able to do certain things that he used to do. For example, keeping precepts. He will not cheat. He cannot cheat anymore. He cannot tell a lie anymore. He will not even think of doing that. So there are many things that happens to a person, and no envy, jealousy anymore. Even the first stage of enlightenment, one overcomes all that. No envy, no jealousy. Although in the beginning, in the first stage of enlightenment, the person still has some desire for things, this person will not transgress any precepts, like killing or stealing or committing adultery or telling lies or taking intoxicants. Will not do that anymore. This person will not do anything that is harmful to anybody, including himself. So some people say that, I just like to drink and it doesn't cause any harm to anybody. What's wrong about that? Many people argue that like that. It's not good for you, because to be mindful is so important. And anything that makes you become less mindful or become mindless is really harmful for you, and it's harmful for everybody. So even an ordinary person who is sober, because we are not so aware or mindful, we make a lot of mistakes. And if you drink or if you take any kind of intoxicants, that will make you even become less mindful, less aware. So you'll make more mistakes. So what happens to people who drive when they are drunk? They get into accident. Just a few weeks, last week I saw an accident. I didn't want to look at it. I just got a glimpse of it. Horrible. The person in the car was crushed inside the car. I don't know whether they got him out of it. I don't think he can get out alive, because the car was so badly crushed. Why? Because they were not mindful. If you drive mindfully, you will not get into such terrible car accident. You can get bumped sometimes, but that's okay. But not in such terrible car accident. And there are many other things like that. So when a person becomes enlightened or experience Nibbana, this person becomes more mindful. Mindfulness becomes quite natural for that person. Not 100%, but more than before. And keeping precepts become natural. Not trying to overcome the desire to overcome, not trying to control himself not to do something. It's natural for that person not even to think of doing it. For example, it won't be able to think of committing adultery. Not trying to control, but not even thinking of it. So it becomes natural for that person. Many Westerners think or have been told that they have attained Nibbana. How can one distinguish true Nibbana from other states that may seem like Nibbana but are not? Well, some people ask this question to Lady Sayadaw also. And Lady Sayadaw said, wait, and when you go into the world and face different situations and difficult situations, those situations will test you. And you'll be found out. Because you can't pretend too long. You can't deceive yourself too long. When you are in deep samadhi and jhana, your mind is free from impurities. You feel like you don't have impurities anymore. But go out into the world. Live with people. Live with all kinds of people. Then those situations will test you. And whatever kilesa or defilements you have will show up. And if you are honest, you can see that, oh, I still have these defilements. This question also is quite similar. How does one distinguish Nirvana from the highest jhanic states? As I told you, when you are in jhanic state, you can still observe that mind, that mental state. But when you are experiencing Nibbana, you cannot observe that consciousness. The consciousness or the experience of Nirvana cannot be observed. For example, when we are meditating, we are aware of something, and we can be aware of that awareness too. That awareness itself can become the object of our meditation practice. And this is important, and we should cultivate this. When you become aware of awareness, awareness becomes stronger and stronger. If you are not aware of awareness, sometimes you may feel like you are aware that you are meditating. But when you become aware of this awareness again, you can see that awareness itself is another mental state. But when a person is experiencing Nibbana, you cannot observe the awareness of Nibbana again. It's very tricky, very difficult.
May I interject a sentence? I think in the experience of Nibbana, because it is transcending subject and object, the transcendence is also transcends the act of knowing.
There is a mental state, but that mental state cannot be an object of another mental state.
That's why, isn't it a transcendence?
It's transcendent,
of
yes.
Object,
Yes.
as well as the transcendence of awareness.
The mental concomitants, which we call satirikas, which is mindfulness, awareness, sati, samadhi, they are accompanied with the Nibbana consciousness. So that means the consciousness has awareness, but it cannot be aware of itself.
That's why I was saying whether it's transcendence of subject and object.
Right. Object is Nibbana, and subject is the awareness of Nibbana, but one cannot observe that consciousness. So in Vipassana, we can observe Vipassana consciousness again, but in experiencing Nibbana, we cannot observe the experience of Nibbana again. So it is beyond phenomena. Nibbana is not a phenomenon. Number two is
it's a state of something.
it's a state of experiencing sensation, but at that moment you don't know or you are not aware that you are experiencing sensation.
Because the subject disappears.
Yeah.
With transcendence.
And another question in the same. Number two is, does one need to give up the experience of phala, fruition, in order to attain Sakadagami, or is it better to attain first stage fruition over and over until the levels of insight become clearer? Which means after a person has achieved the first stage of enlightenment, Sotapaddi Magga, does one need to give up the experience of phala, fruition? If one wants to practice to attain Sakadagami Magga, one has to determine, but put a time limit in that determination. For a few days, I will not experience the fruition consciousness or Sotapaddi Phala consciousness. So for a few days, for 3 days or for a week, I'll meditate with the intention to attain Sakadagami Magga. But you put a time limit. If you don't put a time limit, you know what will happen? it means that you will never go back to experiencing Sotapatti Phala consciousness. And do you like that? You don't. Because to be absorbed in Sotapatti Phala consciousness is very peaceful. So you have earned for it. So whenever you don't want to experience any worldly consciousness, you can decide or determine that I'm now practicing vipassana to go into Phala-samapatti. And when your vipassana practice becomes stronger, naturally you go into Phala-samapatti and you don't experience any mundane experience anymore. So that is like taking a holiday. Taking a holiday from all worldly situations, worldly events. So it's very restful and peaceful, which you deserve. And you are not sure whether you will achieve the next stage of enlightenment on that day or on that week. So because you are not sure, you should determine and put a time limit that during this week I will not go into fruition consciousness or Sotapatti Phala consciousness, but I will practice meditation with the intention to achieve higher consciousness. How would you define rebirth? Well, talking about rebirth again, we must think of truth in two categories. Because many times people ask me the same question. There is conventional truth and there is ultimate truth. In Pali, we have Samudhi Satya and Paramata Satya. So when we talk about samsara, we talk like there's a person who goes from one life to another. So conventionally this is true. Whenever Buddha talk about karma and the effect of karma, he uses this Samudhi Satya, truth. In that level, he speaks in Samudhi Satya truth. And also, when we practice loving kindness, we think of persons. And persons are also truth. They are persons. Man, woman. So we think of our parents. May my mother be happy. May my father be happy. So we think of father or mother. And we think of persons, which is Samudhi Satya. So in the same way, when we talk about samsara and rebirth, we talk as if they are persons, dying and being reborn. So this is an easy way to explain that. But ultimately, every moment there are physical phenomenon, billions of physical phenomena happening, and billions of mental phenomena happening in 1 second. You know how fast the computers work these days? They have now achieved the frequency which is beyond 1 gigahertz per second. 1 gigahertz per second. That's very, very fast. And they are developing even faster computers. Even a computer can work 1 gigahertz per second. And the mind can work even faster. So whatever happening now is just phenomenon, a series, a process. And when a person dies, so to speak, the physical phenomenon stops. The heartbeat stops and the brain stops working. But the mental process still goes on without interruption. So when we are now, so to speak, when we are alive, our mind has active cycle and resting period. So between two active cycles, there's one resting period. And it goes on like that. So in Pali language, you call that active cycle viti, chitta. And this resting cycle, bhavanga. And this resting cycle, bhavanga, is identical to the rebirth consciousness. So we are not aware of that mental state. And when we die, what happens is, after a resting cycle, there's another, after an active cycle, there's another Boenger series of consciousness, and which is dead consciousness, and another rebirth consciousness again. So we cannot die while we are in active mental cycle, active process of the mind. We can die only after that active cycle, and we die. And when we are reborn, the first consciousness is identical to this resting state of mind, and then another active cycle, rebirth state of mind. So the process is exactly the same as what's happening now. So death and rebirth has no break. It's a continuous process. The only difference is the mental process happens to another physical phenomenon, arise with another physical phenomenon. So there's no difference actually. So when we can watch our mental states very closely, sometimes we can experience that gap between active mental cycles. This is very short, and you may ask, how can that be possible? Because it is so short. It is possible because whenever we experience something, identical active cycles arises many millions of times. And because they are identical, although they are arising one after another, it seems like you are projecting the same picture on the screen, identical pictures on the screen. So how would that appear if you are projecting identical pictures on the screen, but in reality the picture is appearing and disappearing all the time, but whatever appears is identical to whatever has disappeared? So how would that appear to you?
Continuous.
Yes, you feel like it is still image. You experience that as a still image. So in the same way, when you develop very high concentration and very high mindfulness, and you observe your mental states, which appears repeatedly, identically, you are seeing that consciousness as if it is still. Therefore, you can observe the sequence also. So, but to get there is very difficult. You need a lot of time and practice to be able to watch your mind. So you can see the sequences. Because it appears identically for billions of times, you can see one after another. Very interesting. The mind investigating the object, the mind deciding that this is it, and the mind accepting that object, and the mind enjoying that object. You can see all those. But it's not easy. And therefore, sometimes you experience that there's a gap between one consciousness and another consciousness. And this is a question in Burmese. The first one is, Ngaba tila lo ni ngayam yaw na usubadi. No, this is not true. Just being able to keep 5 precepts is no guarantee that you will not be reborn in a lower stage of life. And another question is, Totapan tili ngaba tila go chemi sanshaw na ni usubadi. That is true. When you become a first stream winner, which means you have attained the first stage of enlightenment, naturally you keep 5 precepts. It becomes natural. If this is true, explain it in detail. Oh. Well, I don't know how to explain it in detail. Already I have talked about it. We have done a lot of good deeds, and we have done a lot of bad deeds too. And we cannot determine or we cannot tell which will give result when we die. But naturally, whatever we are in a habit to do appears when we are dying. And although we have done a lot of bad deeds, we have also done a lot of good deeds. And because good deeds are more powerful than bad deeds, we are here. Otherwise, we won't be here. And this question, number 3. If you are a soldier and you kill people, are you breaking the precept? Can you keep the precept? No. If you kill people, how can you keep the precepts? And being a soldier, can you call that's a right livelihood? Very difficult question. Killing cannot be a right livelihood. And this number 4 question. Yes, I've read that. The teachers. Okay, oh, I've lived for 2 months in Popa, in Burma, the place which is very famous for these so-called Visa Zoji orthopathy, but I've never found anybody in Popa. Although I found people who are practicing to become one, I've never found anybody who are real Visa or Zoji orthopathy.
In English, what is that?
The great masters or some, I don't know how to translate that into English.
Small gods.
I never believed in any of the wizard from the past world. But I was called to my master, by a dream, and started to experience what the inner path is, the mystical meaning. Actually, my original lineage is from the wizard lineage. I sit on the fence on both sides. Started off with Vipassana and thought very lowly of the Samatha path. Only when I was called back to the lineage, I realized I was very ignorant and full of pride, false pride.
So from my own experience, I cannot tell this.
Because each person has their own path.
So these are things I have not any experience of. Therefore, I cannot say anything from my own experience. I have never met one. So I think that's all the question is, because I've come back to the same question, what it is like being a monk. I think it fits my personality. And I'm very happy being a monk for 27 years. And it's not a difficult lifestyle. For me, it's like fish in the water. And for those who have natural inclination to be a monk, it's not a difficult life. The only difficulty is, you know what the only difficulty I have is? That people give me too much to eat. And sometimes they get so upset that I did not eat everything they offered me. And one person, very recently, got very upset and said, this monk has a craving to live a long life. And therefore he does not eat what I offered him to eat. So that's a hard life. So that's all the questions. Very glad to meet you and talk with you. hope we will see each other again. But now I have to go back a long way and have other things to do. So I must take leave. So as a conclusion to our Dharma talk and discussion this afternoon, let's honor the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha by reciting Imaya Dhammanu Dhammapatipatiya Buddham Pujemi.
Imaya Dhammanu Dhammapatipatiya Buddham Pujemi. Imaya Dhammanu Dhammapatipatiya Dhammam Pujemi. Imaya Dhammanu Dhammapatipatiya Sangham Pujemi.
By practicing according to the teaching of the Buddha, which leads us to liberation, we honor the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
If someone has made a resolve or determination to not go into the first phala again, can they give up that resolve, and how would they do it?
Can they?
Remember the question about how would you give up? Can you give up the resolve? Can you give up the determination? Like if you didn't put a time limit on it? Like a bodhisattva can give up, I guess, their resolve at some point. Is it possible, like if someone didn't put a time limit on their determination?
If a person don't put a time limit, it will be difficult for the person to get into that plasmapati.
Exactly. Could they give up that resolve? Could they go in and say, okay, I give up the resolve to not enter Sotapati Magapala?
So that means to enter it again.
Yeah. Like, can they give up, if they made that mistake, if they didn't put a time limit on it, can they go back and give up the resolve to not?
It can be done, I believe, it can be done. But you have to practice Vipassana again.
Oh, interesting.
In detail.
Okay. Yeah, it's not my question, but it's another person's question. It's a very real question, because they didn't know not to put a time limit on it. And so,
to put a time limit, whatever resolutions you make, it's very important to put a time limit.
I understand. Yeah. But if they made a mistake and didn't know to put a time limit on, can they go back and correct that now?
It can be done, but they have to practice Vipassana more intensively.
What they find is that naturally, because their mind knows the path of insight, that naturally it goes into and goes through the different stages again and again. But because they didn't give up the resolve, and because they made that resolve without time limitation.
This is the end of the discussion in English. The rest is in Burmese.
Awareness, tati, laudaran, tati, Nyeshiya, Sayan, Satati, Twan, Twatati, Jan, Zile, tati. A tati, Young Luda, the Yijis on Navatila, Navatila, Lamon, Navatila, Noidua, Tuzia Seba, Baba. So, Tuzia Seba, Machine, Tuzia Jeba. Tuzia, then wholesome deeds who genus on him. Tiluan, a yet was a John Ship. And yet was a John Ship, you, Navatila, Tiaro, conditioning or control of the delay. The stream enterary Romeo were Tabawa Liao, Malochin as a control of the yard. Elu Dunuaro, Tabuaro, Deja.
Vipassana Nyanya in the Saramara Triba, to the Slaughter of Corano, Nandia Udia Tide, Nine, Nandia Udia, John Jujum Chedes or Tide, Sura Anata Tidable. Another Nyanya Talushi, Adi Anata Nyam, Masonshon Bene, Masonshon Benebu, Tinia, Yani Domabe. Okay, so what is it? Eat the water. ပဲမလားနိုင်ဘူးတဲ့နော်ဒီလိုမှမဟုတ်ရင်တော့ရိုးရိုး၅ပါးသီလထိန်းဝင်တော့တေချာတယ်လို့မပြောနိုင်ဘူးဒါတော့မှဒီဝိပဿနာဉာဏ်ကတဘဝပဲတေချာတယ်လို့ပြောနိုင်တယ်နော်နောက်ထပ်ဘဝတွေမှာဒီလိုပဲပင်မလားတော့ဘူးလို့ပြောလို့မရဘူးအပင်မလားဖို့ရတေချာတဲ့တခုတည်းတော့တရားကတော့အနည်းဆုံးတတ်တာမှဒီမဲ့ရမှာဖြစ်တာနော်နောက်ဦးနာတခါကြီးပြောတဲ့ထဲမှာ၅ပါးသီလကိုထိန်းဖို့အတွက်တတိဆိုတာပါနေတယ်နော်၅ပါးသီလကိုထိန်းဖို့ရမှာတတိပါနေရင်ကိုပဲအဲ့ဒီတတိကလည်းပဲဝိပဿနာဖြစ်သွားတာပဲကိုယ်စိတ်ထဲမှာတခုခုကိုလုပ်ဖို့ကြံစီရဲဆိုရင်အဲ့ဒါကိုသိနေပြီသိနေတော့ဒီဟာကိုသိနေတာကတတိပဋ္ဌာန်တရားအထုတ်နေတာပဲဒါကြောင့်ဘုန်းကြီးတော့တွေးကြည့်တယ်ဘယ်လိုကုသိုလ်မျိုးပဲဖြစ်ဖြစ်အဲ့ဒီကုသိုလ်မျိုးကိုတကယ်အကောင်းဆုံးအဆင့်ရောက်အောင်လုပ်မယ်လို့ရည်ရွယ်ထားပြီးတော့အကောင်းဆုံးဖြစ်အောင်ဒါကြိုးစားနေတတိဆိုတာမပါလို့မရတော့အဲ့တော့အဲ့ဒီတတိပါလာပြီဆိုရင်တဖြည်းဖြည်းနဲ့ဝိပဿနာဉာဏ်မှာဖြစ်လာမယ်ဥပမာဆိုတော့ဒါနလှူတယ်ပဲဆိုအောင်သုံးတော့နော်တခုခုလှူတယ်ဆိုရင်ငါဘယ်လိုစိတ်မျိုးနဲ့လှူတာလဲငါဘယ်လိုစေနာမျိုးနဲ့လှူတာလဲဆိုတာကိုတေချာကြည့်မယ်ဆိုရင်ကိုယ်စိတ်ကိုကြည့်ရတယ်နော်ဘာလို့မျောလင့်ပြီးလှူတာလဲကိုယ်စေနာကိုအဲ့လိုကြည့်တဲ့အလေးချင်းများလာလို့ရှိရင်တဖြည်းဖြည်းနဲ့အဲ့ဒီစေနာကိုပို့ပြီးတော့မြင်လာတယ်နော်အဲ့ဒီစေနာကိုမြင်နေတယ်ဆိုရင်ကိုပဲဒါတတိပဋ္ဌာန်ပွားပြီးသားဖြစ်သွားတယ်နော်အဲ့လိုပဲတိလကိုလုံခြုံအောင်စောင့်ထိန်နေဆိုရင်လည်းဒီတိုင်းပဲတခုခုအချိန်ကြီးကြုံလာပြီဆိုရင်စိတ်ကဘာလို့ဖို့ကြံစီနေပြီလဲသိနေပြီတခုခုပြောတော့မယ်ဆိုရင်ဘာကိုပြောမှလဲဘာယူကျွမ်းနေပြောမှလဲဒီစကားမှန်ရဲ့လားအကျိုးရှိရဲ့လားဆိုတော့တတိထားနေပြီဆိုရင်အလိုလိုနဲ့သူကတံပစင်ညဆိုတာပါနေပြီနော်တတ္တခတံပစင်တို့တပ်ပါရတံပစင်တို့ဆိုတာရှိတယ်နော်အကျိုးရှိရဲ့လားရောက်ပါရဲ့လားတင့်တော်ရဲ့လားနော်ဂောစရတံပစင်အတ္တမဟတံပစင်ဆိုတံပစင်၄ပါးရှိတာနော်ဂောစရတံပစင်ဆိုတာဒီအကြောင်းအရာအာယုံပြုတ်ဖို့ရထိုက်ရဲ့လားဒီအကြောင်းအရာဒီကိစ္စမျိုးကိုတွေးနေဖို့ထိုက်ရဲ့လားအဲ့ဒါကိုသတိထားပြီးကြည့်လို့ရှိရင်တဖြည်းဖြည်းနဲ့အတ္တမဟတံပစင်ဖြစ်သွားမှာနော်အတ္တမဟတံပစင်ဆိုတာကတော့မှားရတဲ့အမြင်မရှိတော့ဘူးအမြင်မှန်ရသွားတယ်ဆိုတဲ့သဘောနော်အဲ့တော့ကုသိုလ်တစ်ခုခုကိုတကယ်တတိနဲ့ဉာဏ်နဲ့ရှင်ပြီးတော့သူအကောင်းဆုံးအဆင့်ရအောင်တကယ်လုပ်မယ်ဆိုရင်တဖြည်းဖြည်းနဲ့ဝိပဿနာဖြစ်သွားနိုင်တယ်တတိပါနေတော့ဝိပဿနာဖြစ်သွားမယ်
ဖြစ်တယ်ဗျာဘာလို့တတိတော်တို့ဆုံးမချက်ရတော့ဘုရားကိုလှူတာတော့အကျိုးရှိဆုံးပေါ့နောက်တန်ဃာတော်တွေလှူရင်လည်းဒါနောက်တစ်ဆင့်ပေါ့ဗျာလူရှိပြီနဲ့ကိုကတော့ကုသိုလ်ရရင်တော့ဘုရားလည်းဆုံးတော့တင်တာတန်ဃာလည်းဆုံးဒါနဲ့ဆင်းရဲလူလည်းပေးကြတာဗျာဟုတ်တာပေါ့မရှိပြီနဲ့ကိုရှိတဲ့တဝက်တည်းကတဝက်ကိုအရေးကြီးဆုံးနေရာပြောတဝက်တော့သွားပေးသေးတာ
တခါကြီးပြောတာဘုန်းကြီးအဲ့ဒါသိတဲ့ဘောကြနော်အဲ့ဒါလည်းပြောရမှနည်းနည်းတော့ခက်တယ်နော်
တင်ပါ
ဒါမဲ့တခါကြီးကပြောတော့ဘုန်းကြီးကလည်းပြောချင်ပြီဗမာပြည်မှာလူမှုရေးနဲ့ပတ်သက်ပြီးတော့အလှူဒါန်းတန်းနေတယ်နော်ဥပမာဆိုတော့ဘုန်းကြီးမိုးကုတ်မြို့ရောက်ခဲ့တယ်အဲ့ဒီမှာလည်းဒီလိုပဲတခါတခါမှဒီစုပြီးတော့တရားအကြောင်းပြောကြဆိုကြမေးကြဆွေးနွေးကြတော့တခါတယောက်ကမေးတယ်အရှင်ဘုရားတဲ့ဒီပြည်တော်တိုင်းပြည်မှာဘုရားတည်ဖို့ကျောင်းဆောက်ဖို့အလှူခံရင်လှူမဲ့သူများပါတယ်တဲ့စာသင်ကျောင်းအတွက်ဆေးရုံအတွက်လှူခံရင်တော့လှူတဲ့လူအင်တာနဲပါတယ်တဲ့ဘာကြောင့်လဲတဲ့စာသင်ကျောင်းအတွက်လှူတာဆေးရုံအတွက်လှူတာတဲ့ကုသိုလ်ရတာနဲတယ်လို့ယူဆလို့လားတော့မဟုတ်နိဗ္ဗာန်အတွက်အထောက်ပံ့မဖြစ်နိုင်ဘူးလို့ယူဆလို့လားတဲ့မေးကြတယ်နော်အဲ့ဒါတကယ်အဖြစ်မှန်ပဲဘုရားအတွက်ကျောင်းအတွက်လှူခံမယ်ဆိုရင်လူတဲ့လူများတယ်နော်စာသင်ကျောင်းအတွက်ဆေးရုံအတွက်လှူခံမယ်ဆိုလူတဲ့လူကနေနေတယ်အဲ့တော့နားလည်ထားကြတာကဘုရားအတွက်လှူတာကကုသိုလ်ပိုရတယ်နော်ကျောင်းဆောက်ထူတယ်ဆိုတာကလည်းအင်တန်ကုသိုလ်ကြီးတယ်လို့ဒီလိုလည်းဘုရားဟောထားတာပေါ့နော်အဲ့တော့မှန်ပါတယ်နော်ယဟန်တန်ဃာကိုလှူရတာအထူးသဖြင့်အရိယာတန်ဃာကိုလှူရတာဆိုပြီးတော့အကျိုးများတယ်တက်တော့ထင်ရှားဘုရားကိုလှူရမယ်ဆိုတော့အကျိုးအများဆုံးပေါ့နော်မှန်ပါတယ်အဲ့ဒါနော်ဘာလို့ဆိုတရားတရားသိကောင်းတာပေါ့အဲ့ဒါလို့ကုသိုလ်များတာကိုလှူဖို့ဆိုပြီးတော့ရည်ရွယ်ချက်ထားလိုက်တဲ့ခါကျတော့ဒီမှာလူမှုရေးအတွက်လှူတာတဖြည်းဖြည်းနည်းသွားတာတွေ့ရတာအဲ့ဒါကိုလည်းပဲဘုန်းကြီးကဘယ်လိုတွေးလဲဆိုတော့အဲ့ဒါကြောင့်လည်းပဲမာရီကသိမတိုးတက်ဘူးလို့ထင်တယ်နော်လူမှုရေးနဲ့ပတ်သက်တဲ့ကိစ္စတွေမှာတခုခုလုပ်မယ်ဆိုရင်အခက်အခဲအများကြီးရှိ
ပြီးတော့ဒီစာဒီထဲမှာအဲ့လိုဆိုလာတော့စိတ်ကတော့ပူတန်တော့ဒါနဲ့မလူပဲမနေနိုင်ဘူးဆင်းရဲတဲ့အတွက်ပူလိုတယ်ဒီဗျာ
ဟုတ်တယ်လို့
ဘုန်းကြီးကတော့အရှင်ဘုရားပြောလို့မျိုးသူဝတ်ဆရာလဲ ရှမ်းပဲလူချင်းတဲ့လူတွေကအများဆုံးအကြီးလို့တခါတည်းမနဲ့တုံးပြီးတော့လှူရတာပေါ့ကုသိုလ်ရအောင်တော့သွားတော့လှူရတယ်ဒါနဲ့ဟုတ်ပါတယ်ဟိုတွေ့တော့ချမ်းသာတော့နောက်တစ်ချက်ရှိသေးတယ်ဗျာလှူတဲ့နေရာမှာတတိယဆရာတော်ကြီးတွေပဲပြောဆုံးမှာပေါ့ဒီလှူတဲ့အခါမှာဒီစေတနာမှာမူတည်လို့ပေါ့ရင်တော့စေတနာတိတ်မကောင်းတဲ့လူတွေကဒီဘဝမှာချမ်းချမ်းသာသာနေရပါနဲ့လို့ဆုပ်ဆုပ်ပြတ်ပြတ်ပဲနေခြင်းတယ်ပေါ့အဲဒီဟိုကောင်းကောင်းမွန်မွန်ဝတ်ချင်ကောင်းကောင်းမွန်မတွားချင်မစားရမတောက်ရပဲနဲ့အလကားဖြစ်တော့အဲ့ဒါလေတပည့်တော့တိတ်စိတ်ထဲဘဝင်မကြောက်ရဘာလို့တခါကြကိုကချီလုံးကြီးလေးနဲ့နုံနုံလေးနဲ့ဆိုနေလို့ကောင်းနေတာနဲ့ပိုးလုံးကြီးရွှှနဲ့ပြင်းပြမနဲ့နေပြမလို့ဖြစ်နေတာကြပိုက်ဆံရှိမှန်းသိအောင်လို့ကိုကလူနုံလူချမဟုတ်ဘူးအရင်ဘဝကောင်းကောင်းလုပ်ခဲ့တယ်လူဒါနပြုခဲ့တဲ့လူဆိုလို့ proof လုပ်ချင်လို့ဝတ်ထားဆိုမဟုတ်သေးဘူးဗျာအဲ့တော့တခါကြီးဘယ်သူဘာပြောပြောကွက်ကိုစစ်ချမ်းသာလို့ဒါဝတ်လိုက်ပါဘုန်းကြီးတို့လည်းဒီလိုပဲတိတ်ကောင်းလို့နဲ့သင်္ကန်းဆိုမိုးနိုင်ဘူးမိုးနိုင်တာတိတ်ကောင်းလို့သင်္ကန်းဝတ်လို့ကိုမကောင်းတာဘိုးသင်္ကန်းဆိုရှောနဲ့ကြသွားလို့ဆိုမိုးချင်တယ်တော့မို့ဘူးရိုးရိုးဒီလိုသင်္ကန်းလေးပဲတင်းရုံတော့ကောင်းတော်ပြီပေါ့နော်အစာဦးတိတ်ကောင်းကောင်းမဝင်ကြီးလဲမလို့ချင်ဘူးသူ့ကိုကောင်းလုံးအကြည့်တော့သူ့ကိုကောင်းအောင်ဆက်ပြီးတော့ပြုပြင်ရတယ်ထင်းသိရတယ်အဲ့ဒီတာဝန်တော်ကြီးတယ်နောက်စိတ်ဒုက္ခရောက်တော့ဗျာဟိုကိုကတက်တောင့်တက်တာနေရမယ်စားတာကြီးနဲ့ဟုတ်တယ်ကျွတ်ကျွတ်ကြီးနဲ့လို့အဲ့တော့ဘယ်သူဘာပြောပြောကိုယ့်ကိုစိတ်ချမ်းသာအောင်နေလဲတာကောင်းပါလေဟိုကျမ်းဂန်တွေပါနေရှင်ဘုရားဟောလို့မျိုးကိုကပြီးတော့ဟောတော့တယ်တပည့်တော်တို့ကတော့တမယိုးဟောပါလေဘုရားဘာသာအစဉ်လာကိုင်းဆိုင်လာတဲ့လူဆိုတော့အဲ့ဒီဘက်တော့စိတ်တော့ပါတော့ဗျာအဲ့တော့ဘဝင်တော့မကြောက်ပါဗျာအဲ့ဒါရှိတယ်ဗျာစားတော့လေအရင်ဘဝကောင်းကောင်းမလှူလာတဲ့အတွက်ကြောင့်ပတ်စံရှိရတာနဲ့ကောင်းတာမစားနိုင်ပါလေထမင်းကြမ်းလေးပဲပဲပြုတ်လေးပဲကြိုက်တယ်ဆိုတော့အေးဒီကကြီးပြောလို့ဆိုဘုန်းကြီးလည်းအဲ့လိုဖြစ်နေတာဟင်းကောင်းကောင်းဆိုတိတ်မစားခြင်းဘူးနော်အတိရပြုတ်ကလေးပါလေဆိုတော့ပိုကြိုက်တာကျမ်းမာရေးနဲ့ညွတ်တာရွေးပြီးစားတာပါပဲနော်အဲ့တော့လူများကကောင်းတယ်လို့ထင်တာကအရသာကိုအဓိကထားတာဟုတ်နော်ကျမ်းမာရေးအတွက်မညွတ်ဘူးအဲ့တော့အဝတ်စားလည်းဒီလိုပဲကျမ်းမာရေးနဲ့ညွတ်အောင်ဉာဏ်လေးနဲ့ရှင်ပြီးတော့ဝတ်ဖို့ပဲအစားလည်းဒီလိုပဲကျမ်းမာရေးနဲ့ညွတ်အောင်ဉာဏ်လေးနဲ့ရှင်ပြီးတော့စားဖို့ပဲအများကောင်းတယ်ဆိုတိုင်းတကယ်ကောင်းတယ်လို့ပြောလို့မရပါဘူးအဲ့တော့ဘယ်သူဘာပြောပြောကိုယ်စိတ်ကိုသိပါတယ်နော်ကုသိုလ်စိတ်လေးနဲ့နေတယ်စိတ်ချမ်းသာနေတယ်ချိုးကြံတယ်ချွေတာတယ်ကိုယ်မှပိုးရရှမ်းတာကိုလောက်မပြည့်စုံတဲ့လူတွေကိုမျှပြီးပေးလိုက်တယ်ဆိုရင်ဒါပြီးတာပါပဲသူများဘာပြောပြောပေါ့ကိုယ်စိတ်ကိုသိပါလေဘုန်းကြီးတို့လည်းလိုပဲအမျိုးမျိုးပြောကြဆိုကြဝေဖန်ကြတယ်ဝေဖန်ကြလဲဘုန်းကြီးကဘယ်လိုပြန်ပြောလဲဆိုတော့ကိုယ်စေတနာကိုသိပါတယ်လို့တခေါမတော်ပါပြီအဲ့လောက်ပဲဖြည့်ရှင်းချက်ပေးမနေဘူးနော်လူတွေဝေဖန်သမျှဖြည့်ရှင်းချက်လိုက်ပေးနေရဆုံးမှာမဟုတ်ဘူးအဲ့တော့အမျိုးမျိုးဝေဖန်ခံရတယ်အဲ့တော့တခါကြီးတို့ဝေဖန်လိုက်ရင်လဲအဲ့လိုပဲပြောလိုက်ပေါ့ကိုကကိုစိတ်ချမ်းသာလို့နေတာပါအဲ့ဒါပေါ့ဥပ္ပခါနဲ့ပဲနေသွားရုံပဲကိုစေနာကိုသိပါတယ်ဒီနေ့ဒီကကြီးတို့ဒီမကြီးတို့နဲ့တွေ့ရဆိုတော့ပြောဆိုတာကောင်းပါတယ်နော်တပည့်တော်လက်တော်ကြာပါဗျာ40ခုနှစ်တည်းက